What's up, addicts? Today we're going to talk Joe Mixon, the running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. So Joe Mixon is a bit of an interesting character and is one of the fantasy headlines this year. And looking last year, we can kind of see the story of why a lot of people are projecting him to break out. But let's see what the stats show us, and I'll give you guys my take on whether or not I'm thinking Joe Mixon is going to be the hotness this year. So looking last year, Joe Mixon started 7 games. He played 14. He only had 178 carries, 626 yards, averaged 3.5 a carry, and had 4 touchdowns. He also had 30 receptions for 287 yards. So last year, you have to take into consideration that Marvin Lewis, the coach for the Bengals, he hates running backs. He hates rookies, rather. He hates rookies of all kinds. And anytime he has a rookie on his team, he does everything he possibly can to keep them on the bench because for some reason, that's just what he does. I don't know what the thought process there is because look at what the Saints did with their rookies last year. But hey, Marvin Jones still has a job and I'm not coaching in the NFL, so what do I know? Anyway, Joe Mixon didn't really get a chance last year to really show us what he had. Yes, he did start a few games, but still heavily in a running back by committee with Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard. Jeremy Hill was getting a lot of the goal line work, and Giovanni Bernard was getting most of the third down and reception work. So they let Jeremy Hill go. He went to the Patriots, and now they only have Gio Bernard really behind Joe Mixon. They did draft Mark Walton from the Hurricanes, but I don't think he's going to be much of a factor this year, again, based on Marvin Lewis's hatred of rookies, and Mark Walton fell pretty far. He didn't get graded very highly as a running back coming into the draft, so it's pretty likely that Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard are going to be the main 2 studs rolling with it for the Bengals this year. So what we have to then consider is some of the other reason why Joe Mixon may have had a poor season last year. The Bengals had one of the worst offensive lines last year graded on PFF, and they realized that was a mistake, and they spent a good amount of capital this offseason making sure that they rectified that mistake. So they got an offensive lineman from the Bills, and then with their first overall pick, and they ended up drafting an offensive lineman as well. Now, granted, we don't really know yet how they're going to work, but it should be assumed that at least it's going to be an improvement from last year, assuming health. And that has to be a positive because last year their offensive line play was just absolutely atrocious. The other issue is Andy Dalton. We've seen good Andy Dalton. We've seen bad Andy Dalton. Last year was just absolutely atrocious, Andy Dalton. So hopefully the offensive line, giving him a little bit more time, will actually help him so that way they don't just stack the box against Joe Mixon. So overall, I think we're kind of at a hold right now with Joe Mixon. I have him teetering between tier 3 and tier 4, which is a pretty big difference if you're looking at the guys in 3 and 4. I think with Joe Mixon, it's really going to be dependent on what we see in training camp and what we see in preseason, and mostly how the offensive line and Andy Dalton are performing as well, not just Joe Mixon. But in fantasy football, if you have volume can turn into a lot of production. And Joe Mixon is not slappy by any means. He's a pretty good running back. He didn't really show it last year, and it's yet to be seen that he'll actually be able to translate his college talent to the NFL. But there's definitely room for it. And with all the upgrades that they made to their offensive line, the Bengals overall are just trending upwards as a team. I could see a realm where Joe Mixon is a low running back 1, a high running back 2, and you'll be happy with it. I'm not really in the point where I'm sold on making that confirmative option yet. I definitely haven't ranked him as such, and it would probably take a good number of storylines to actually convince me that he is going to break out this year. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if he ends up being a running back 2, that would be considered a breakout because last year he was pretty bad. But I'm not too worried that he's going to underperform what he did last year because, again, like I said, he did really bad. But I think right now he's being taken right around the end of the 2nd, early 3rd round. That's still a little too high for me. I really like the receivers that are going in that range. And rather, if I'm picking early in the first round, I'm taking a stud running back. I'd rather load up with 2 really good wide receivers at this point. So Joe Mixon right now for me is a pass, but I definitely could see a world where over the preseason that changes for me. So as that happens, if you guys are curious where I have him ranked and where I will have him ranked, feel free. You can click the link in the description box and download my PPR tiers, and you'll be able to see where I have him ranked right now. I'll be updating those throughout the preseason leading up to the regular season, so if I do end up buying into Joe Mixon, you'll see him slowly rise up the ranks, but you guys will get all those updates, and I believe that's all. Hopefully you guys have a good one. Peace.